2:14 a.m. A senior engineer is staring at a checkout bug that breaks about 4% of cart totals. The clean fix is a refactor, 3 days of work. The hack is 12 lines, a feature flag, and a comment that says, "Remove me after Friday." The deal closes Friday, an 8-figure deal. The kind of round where sales has stopped sleeping. Jobs ride on it. She ships the hack, writes the ticket, goes to bed. Big deal, real jobs. One engineer, one Friday. Step back, the macro lens on what's actually happening. AI code generation has gone vertical. Copilot, Cursor, Claude Code. Stack Overflow's 2024 developer survey reported about 3/4 of developers either using or planning to use AI coding tools. And, at large engineering orgs, a real chunk of merged code is now AI-assisted. Some teams report north of half. The part most AI is replacing engineers' content skips. Production incidents have not collapsed alongside the volume of generated code. Post-Copilot retrospectives keep surfacing the same pattern. The AI writes code that compiles, passes the tests it can see, and breaks something subtle nobody thought to ask about. A time zone. A null path nobody owns. A migration that's correct in staging and catastrophic in prod because staging doesn't carry 10 years of dirty data. That gap between code that runs and code that should ship is the entire job now, and the market is pricing it in. Junior compensation is being squeezed. Senior comp is holding, and in some segments it's climbing. A new kind of posting is emerging. Some companies call it context engineer. Some call it staff engineer with AI integration scope, but the job description is the same. Companies didn't invent that role because AI made context cheaper. They invented it because AI made context the bottleneck. So the question isn't whether AI is coming for your job. The question is which part of the job it can't reach. 4 moves a senior engineer makes that no model can. About halfway through, what the metric isn't gets named on screen, and the next video carries the rest. And hold this too. No model on earth would have made that 2:14 a.m. call. Not because it couldn't write the code, because it doesn't know which Friday matters. The first move AI can't make is the trade-off call. Not the obvious one, the one that isn't in the ticket. A model can tell you that normalized schemas reduce duplication and denormalized schemas reduce read latency. It will list the textbook pros and cons in a tidy table. What it cannot do is sit in a room and know that your CEO just promised the board a sub-200 millisecond dashboard, that your team has 2 months of runway on the current architecture, and that the correct refactor will land 6 weeks after the board meeting that decides whether you exist at all. The senior call is, denormalize the hot path, document the debt, set a calendar reminder for Q3 ship. That's not a coding decision. That's a survival decision wearing a coding decision's clothes. You see this everywhere once you start looking. Consistency versus latency, when neither one is technically wrong. A 2-week deadline versus the architecture you'd build with 6 months. The hack that earns the company another quarter versus the elegant rewrite that wins the postmortem and loses the customer. A junior wants the right answer. A senior wants the right answer for this Friday, in this company, with this team, knowing that next quarter changes the math entirely. The model doesn't have access to any of that. It can't. The information lives in calendars, hallway conversations, half-finished decks, and the look on the CFO's face during the last all hands. That's not a prompt engineering problem. That's a job. The second move is reading the room. Every requirements doc you've ever read is wrong. Not maliciously. Just incompletely. The person who wrote the ticket knew things they didn't write down, assumed things they didn't question, and forgot things that hadn't bitten them yet. Add export to CSV. Sounds like an afternoon. A senior engineer reads that ticket and starts asking different questions. Who is going to open this file? The PM is new. The PM didn't say it, but the requester is in finance. The Friday deadline isn't a sprint deadline. It's the close of the quarter. And the person on the other end of that file isn't the finance analyst who filed the ticket. It's the CFO, glancing at it for 15 seconds before forwarding it to the board. None of that is in the ticket. All of it changes what gets built. The columns have to be in the order a non-technical executive expects. The totals have to reconcile to the dashboard the CFO already trusts. The file has to look right at first glance, because nobody is going to debug a CSV at 9 p.m. on quarter close. Hand the ticket to a model and you get a CSV. A clean one. What you don't get is a model pausing to ask whether the new PM was in the room when the CFO said, "This is the report I send the board," because the model has no idea that room exists. The skill here isn't telepathy, it's a learned reflex to mistrust the surface of a request. The internal question every senior carries is some version of, who is actually reading this, what decision are they making from it, and what would go wrong if the build matched the ticket exactly? That question doesn't come from training data. It comes from having shipped the wrong thing once, watched a VP open it in front of the board, and rewired around never letting it happen again. Halfway through, time to name the metric. Here's what it isn't. It isn't tenure. 10 years of writing the same CRUD app in 3 different companies will not produce it. The clock running is not the same as the work being done. It isn't frameworks shipped. You can have React, Vue, Svelte, Next, Remix, and 3 backend stacks on your resume and still not have it. Surface area is not depth. It isn't your technical screen score. The cleanest LeetCode in the room can walk into a real code base and freeze, because the real code base doesn't tell you which problem to solve. It isn't even raw IQ. Smart people without this metric ship beautifully wrong things faster than anyone else. The trade-off call, the CSV ticket, the postmortem, they all run on the same underlying capacity. One specific shape of judgment accumulated a specific way. You can name 3 engineers on your current team who have it and 3 who don't, even if their resumes look identical. The name lives outside this video. Naming it here would turn this into a definition reel, and that's not what this is. The negative space comes first. The name, and how to build it on purpose instead of by accident, is the next video. For now, hold the shape. Back to the moves. The third move is the one nobody puts in a job description, because if you have to be told, you're already the wrong hire. A model will write you a logger. Structured, async, batched, with retries. What it will not do, unprompted, is ask whether the data flowing through that logger contains a phone number belonging to a user in Munich, and whether that phone number, sitting in your S3 bucket in Virginia, under no transfer mechanism your legal team has signed off on, is the kind of data flow that turns a Tuesday stand-up into a 6-month compliance project. It won't ask because nothing in the ticket said Munich, nothing in the ticket said GDPR, the ticket said add request logging. A senior engineer reads add request logging, and the regulatory map lights up. GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA if there's any health data anywhere, SOC2 if you have enterprise customers, PCI if you touch a card number, state-level biometric laws if you ever cashed a face. This is also where the audit trail instinct lives. If a finance export is going to end up as evidence in a regulatory filing, that CSV stops being a CSV and starts needing row counts, generated timestamps, hashes, and a record of who pulled it. Each regime has specific clauses about retention, residency, redaction, audit. None of them are in the code base. All of them are binding. That regulatory layer is not optional. It is also not learnable from public training data, because the way it actually applies to your company depends on contracts your legal team signed, jurisdictions your customers live in, and certifications you've promised to auditors. The model has no read access to any of that. The ethical layer sits next to it, and it's quieter. The senior call is sometimes to push back on the ticket itself, to ask whether the feature should exist, not just whether it works. That conversation happens in DMs and hallways, not in pull requests, and it's the part of the job that decides whether your company ends up in an investigation or doesn't. A model can flag obvious problems. It cannot decline to build something on principle. That distinction matters more every quarter. The fourth move is different from reading the room. Room reading happens before the decision. Postmortem writing happens after the failure, when the political cost of telling the truth is highest, and the people with the most authority are most motivated to avoid it. The fourth move is writing the postmortem. Not the timeline. The timeline is easy. Logs, graphs. At 1403, the cache cluster lost 2 nodes. A model can draft that section better than most humans, faster than any human in the room. The hard part is the section called root cause, and it is almost never a technical root cause. The technical thing that broke is the symptom. The actual root cause is a decision that was made 6 months ago by people who are still in the room, who have political capital tied up in the decision being correct, and who are reading the document. Saying, we shipped without an integration test because the deadline was set by sales without consulting engineering, is a sentence that will get ratioed in a Google Doc by 3 vice presidents within the hour. Saying it anyway, with evidence, in a way that the company can actually act on, is the job. A model will not write that sentence. It will not name the VP. It will not point at the decision. Not because it can't construct the words, because it has no stake in the outcome and no relationship with the people who need to read it. A good postmortem is a political document disguised as a technical one. It has to be true enough to prevent the next incident, and diplomatic enough that the people responsible can keep working there. The senior engineer who can write that paragraph is the engineer whose career compounds. That's not typing. That's not reviewing a diff. That's doing the part of the work that the model fundamentally cannot reach, because the model has no career to risk and no team to protect. None of those 4 moves are typing. They're deciding. That's the shift. The job didn't get smaller. The part of the job that AI is good at got commoditized, and the part it can't reach became the entire deliverable. Syntax used to be most of the work. Now it's the cheapest input in the stack. What's left is the architecture call, the room read, the regulatory instinct, the postmortem that actually changes how the company operates. If you're an engineer reading this and feeling squeezed, the squeeze is real, and it's specific. It's coming for the part of the work that was always closer to transcription than to thinking. The engineers who treated coding as the whole job are about to find out it was never the whole job. The engineers who treated it as the visible tip of a much larger judgment process just got promoted, by force, into the part of the job that always was the work. 4 moves. Every one of them runs on something underneath, a single metric that determines whether you have the judgment to make those calls at all. The shape was named here, not the name itself. That's in the next video, the metric that separates senior from junior engineers, not years. If you've ever wondered whether you're actually building it or just accumulating years, watch that one.